So you've probably seen the title already. This is going to be super raw, uncut. I'm not really going to say too much. It's going to be very different from what my usual videos are. And I'm just going to talk about how I've been able to make over, I think, 26K single month, as a growth consultant, as people like to say it. And yeah, that's my age, 19. I only have actually 2 hours to milk it because I'm going to turn 20 actually in a few hours, and it's actually crazy, honestly. So, you know, it's a bit nuts. What I do is basically very simple on the surface level, but what I do in terms of like how I scale, businesses, how I work with coaches, how they pay me a ton of money, it was never like linear in a sense. It was always kind of like up and down in terms of like everything. And I would just pull this stuff up so you guys, know, this stuff is crazy. I can just show you what the year to date was actually. So it's like if I go year to date, I don't know if you guys can see this, but that's kind of like the year to date. I don't know if I can refresh whatever. It's there, and then like if I go into like months and stuff like on Revolut, that's like the biz bank and stuff. Like I think Jan we had like 17 and money in and whatnot, and then like other months we had like crazy stuff because usually revenue whatever, but it's there essentially. So it's like people pay me a lot of money, and that's no like style edge. And it wasn't easy to kind of conceptualize this at the start because at the start it's like you don't really know what you're doing essentially. It's like you're looking at this and you're like thinking to yourself, damn, this is so much money. Like, how are these guys doing it? And it's like you think to yourself, well, how do they feel like if I make this money? And then you make it, and it doesn't really feel as crazy as you might actually think it is. But let's just kind of like rewind and just talk to you guys about like how I even got into this stuff in the first place. So, I was previously a programmer. I was doing it. I was doing like side jobs here and there, like doing it, building websites and stuff. And I realized that I actually hate this. I don't enjoy this at all because I just didn't enjoy the fact of like doing it for other people. So I was searching up ways to de-stress, and I found Lord and Savior Iman Gadzi, and he pretty much like broke down how his business model works. And I didn't have any sort of reference point to say this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, because I actually haven't worked any sort of like normal job or anything like that. So I thought to myself, okay, let me try this out. Let me see how this can work. And I tried it out. I got the course within like I think 2-3 weeks of knowing about him. Couldn't actually afford it. Actually split paid it because like it was so much money at the time. It was like 1,500. I had like 750, and I was calculating. I was like, shit, I need to pay this. And then paid it, got into it, implemented pretty much like everything, and actually saw success in like month 2. But it wasn't like straightforward. Like I actually saw success from talking to someone that actually made like a ton, like was working as like a company in this like big corporation. Like he was the closer there. His name is Hassan. He's actually a client. It's actually super funny, and he gave me like 15 minutes worth of advice. Pretty much changed my life, and I started signing clients honestly. And what I want to do in this video is just kind of give you guys like some sort of like clarity in a sense, because the hardest part is when you're in the trenches and you don't really get a lot of people rooting for you. That's when it feels like it's super tough, and that's when like a lot of the times you need a lot of help. So one thing I've learned along the months and years of like doing this stuff is that the reality you already want basically already exists. And it's kind of hard to conceptualize this, but like let me explain this to you for a sec. So if you're trying to make like 10K or like 20K or like 50K a month for your business or anything like that, like that reality of you making that already exists. I kind of talked about this in a previous video, but it's already there. It's you can't really like see it, but conceptualize that there's different realities of you making the money that you want to make. Like you're already imagining yourself on a yacht, you can already do this. Because if you can imagine it, it's possible, essentially. So I'm not going to explain why those realities exist, because that's a completely different thing. You can go read a book or something like that. But you just need to know they exist, okay? Now that you know they exist, you just need to align your focus with that reality. So you basically just need to become the person that achieves those types of results. And eventually you're going to align yourself and get there. However, at the start, especially in the beginning, even though those odds exist, even though those realities exist, they're just not in your favor. It's like the chance of you getting there is like 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000 essentially, because you need to have so many pieces fall into place for you to actually get there. So what most people don't do is they don't put the odds in their favor, because at the end of the day there is some luck or there's some stuff involved. I would completely agree as well too. There are times where I was very fortunate and stuff kind of came to me at the right time. I implemented it and I basically made a ton of money. So it's like these types of things happen, but you can't say it's luck when you don't put yourself in a position to be lucky in the first place. So what do I mean by this? So putting yourself in a position to actually see success is basically doing the stuff that you need to do, doing the daily inputs, and embodying the type of person that is going to that is basically achieving those goals. So if you want to embody the fact of like, okay, cool, I am a guy that makes 50K a month. I do these types of habits every day. I do these types of works every day. I respond to these types of clients every day. You will eventually get there because you are aligning yourself with that reality and you're putting yourself in a part where you're going to be a little bit more lucky to achieve those things. So you might get something that falls in your platter because you've been so consistent. A client might be like, hey, I love the work that you did for me. I actually had this friend that I met in dinner and he was talking about the work that you did for me. And I told him that you helped me and then blah, 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 you just got a referral. And it's like those things, you don't get them if you're not consistent. So that's kind of like the main thing I would say. Like people don't look at the realities and they don't look at how they should align themselves. They talk about aligning themselves or becoming a person, but they never actually do it. And that's like the hardest part is just being consistent and like kind of tricking yourself and deluding yourself to be someone that you already are. And a lot of that delusion comes from like rewiring how you think about yourself, because a lot of the times people have certain conditionings that kind of like stop them from achieving success. It's actually really true. Like there's people that have like crazy goals or have crazy visions like when they start out, and then eventually you just kind of die off, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's because of the conditioning that they get from other people. So I was pretty fortunate because I didn't really get that much conditioning. Like the time I was watching those videos, it was like I only got introduced to YouTube when I was like 13 or something. I didn't even know what YouTube was until I was like 13, like scrolling through it and stuff like that. So I didn't really have much conditioning to tell me that this was not possible. But you might be in a household that where it's like people are kind of like doubting you. People are kind of like saying stuff like it doesn't make sense, or like people are like, oh, you should probably get like a real job or something like that. Technically, I didn't have that because there was no reference point. The only reference point was like parents saying go to uni and stuff, and I was just like, nah, I don't want to do that. But like that pretty much helped me a ton. So it's like I can't imagine how difficult it must be to kind of like rewire yourself and kind of like think differently because you just saw a couple of YouTube videos or you saw a guy just talking to you about how he's made a ton of money, and you're like, you know what, I'm gonna start doing the same thing that they're doing as well too. So that's kind of like the difficult part. But I feel like once you get through that part of just convincing yourself and being deluded enough that it's actually possible, it's pretty much going to help you in the long run essentially. So that's like one of the most difficult parts, I would say. And like I said, the odds part is super important because you have to pretty much put the odds into your favor. And the only way that you do this is there's two ways you do this. So going back to the odds thing where it's like there's multiple different realities of you making the money you want to make, like it already exists. The major thing, like I said before, right now, let's say if you want to make 50, chances are you getting there is like 1 in 10,000. It just is like, you know, you have to learn so much things. You need to know how to build offers, you need to know how to solve problems, you need to know how to operate sales calls, you need to know how to do certain types of things, a bunch of stuff. There's basically a bunch of variables and they all intertwine with each other, and these variables will influence other variables that influence other variables and other variables. So it's like obviously this odds stack up and then boom, you have a matrix and odds are 1 in 1,000. Cool. So how do you kind of like reduce this? The main thing that you have to focus on is just doing a bunch of shit. And when I mean a bunch of shit is basically just doing so much volume to the point that you just get so many reference points that all the odds start to go into your favor. So for example, if you don't know how to make offers, you just make a shit ton of offers, or you just make a shit ton of VSLs, or you hop on a shit ton of secure sales calls, or you book a shit ton of appointments. And that's essentially what I did. It's like I just did so much volume to the point where it just didn't make sense for me to not be good. Like appointments, I probably booked like over, bro, I can't even imagine how many appointments I've personally booked for clients essentially. I can't imagine how many offers I've built for clients. I can't imagine how many sales calls I've taken. It's nothing crazy, but like I've taken quite a few of them. And I can't imagine how many YouTube videos I had to record. That's why I'm effortlessly flowing on these types of things. So obviously there's here and there's some mistakes and stuff, but I'm flowing essentially. And those repetitions, they all basically put all the odds into my favor. So me speaking to like this might attract someone to me to be like, hey, I like this guy, I like the way he talks, something like that, and then boom. But that's only because I've done all this volume that's put the odds into my favor. So do you kind of see what I mean? So it's like you have to do a bunch of shit. But the problem is we only have 24 hours in a single day. So there's only so much shit you can do in a single day. So that's like the main thing. So that's how you kind of like compress and put the odds into your favor in that way. And then the second way of like putting the odds into your favor and aligning yourself is by working with someone or by learning from someone that actually knows what they're talking about, or someone that's a little bit more ahead. Because the chances are, let's say for example, you trying to get to like 50K or like 100K or like whatever way you service, chances are there's someone that's already done that and someone that's already solved the problem that you're facing that's stopping you from getting to that. The chances are that they exist is extremely high. Because if it wasn't, then you're doing something completely different that no one has ever done before, which I wouldn't recommend if you're trying to like start something completely fresh and just make a lot of money. So if you're doing that, you already have reference points. You already have I would say like a manual of what works essentially. So now that you have this manual, it just makes sense to obviously just follow it. Like it makes sense to just be like, okay, cool, this is what these people are doing. Let me just work with these people. But the hard part is that everyone kind of keeps their insights to themselves, and rightfully so. They spend hours, mistakes, sometimes money as well too, to learn these insights. So they're obviously not just going to give it away for free. It'll be disingenuous, and it just raises the standard extremely too high. So that's why these people put stuff behind a paywall, and that's why you guys have to be okay with stuff behind paywalls, because if you're not okay with it, you're not going to be able to learn stuff, and you need to be able to buy. You need to be able to buy. I think like somebody talks about it, it's like the ignorance step of not knowing things that you should know. Like you not knowing how to make 10K a month, or you not knowing how to make 20K a month, is costing you this amount over a long period of time. So if someone is selling something that solves a specific problem, if someone's selling something that's $100 and it's showing you how to like book 25 appointments a month, do you not think it makes sense to spend $100 rather than like spending the thousands that's going to take you over the long period of time of you not knowing how to make or how to generate those 25 appointments? But it's like people don't think like this. People are so short-term-minded that they're extremely bad at thinking long-term. And this is why a lot of marketers kind of capitalize the fact that people are bad at thinking long-term. It's like, for example, college. They don't charge you the 100 grand up front. They do it in little bits, little chunks, and then you think to yourself, oh, it's not that bad. It's just 100K. And eventually, boom, you spend so much money on them, and they've just taken everything because they've expanded the price range, and it looks short. It looks like nothing short term, but long term, it's actually quite a lot of money, and you can't realize it because you're too busy looking short term. So that's like the main thing, and people are capitalizing that. They're capitalizing on that because of our inability to think long term. So if people have an inability to do that, you should have an ability to do that and actually look at things in like a longer time horizon. And that's like the major thing, honestly. And then the second part is obviously like I said before, working with people that kind of know what they're doing and learning insights from people that are actually in their trenches and making this stuff right now. Because there's a lot of people, especially marketers, that will have like agencies and like they will teach people how to do these things, but it's like they're not actively in the trenches. And I didn't really realize how big that was until I started getting insights and started working with people that were actually applying stuff, because they would just give me inputs that would work straight away. Like for example, I had a friend, good friend, run he's still a good friend. He runs a growth partner agency. I don't know if he still does it anymore, but like he runs one, and like he would hop on calls with me. He would give me like insights. I would implement them the next day and see results because he was actively doing the same thing I was doing. And it's like those things are priceless because you can literally ask someone like, hey, what's working right now? And they'll be like, oh, this is working, and then you scale with them. Even if they're not crazy ahead of them, even if they're not making like 100K a month, 50K a month, they can give you the insights that can help them, that can help you make your first 5K, your first 10K. And then from there, you can listen to the people who are making the crazy amounts of money. And then you can implement their stuff because most of the time, these guys are not going to be able to help you. And it's not their fault. They're just much more ahead. They're not actively in the trenches. So that's kind of like the biggest thing I've learned is just like working with people that are in the trenches, because it just aligns you closer to that reality that I talked about that already exists. Okay. And that's kind of like why, I started taking my list a lot seriously. If you don't know what my list is, it's basically, it's the high ticket protocol where I pretty much teach people how they can sign, 5, 7 extra clients. You don't have to pay attention to it. It's like the links are there, but it's like, that's not the point of this video. But to give you an example, I basically drop insights in that list, and it helps a ton of people to actually sign stuff because I'm doing this stuff right now in the trenches, and that's completely free. By the way, you can just join it if you're interested in like learning, but that's not the point of this anyways. But like those types of things help so many people, and that's what I realized. And as I started going through these things and I started seeing all these people get results just from like my thoughts and just from like my information that I would just give out there because I was actively getting results for clients, is the reason why, like, I kind of see coaching is kind of like a good thing, but it's like it's not making me want to start one because I know how much effort goes into it, like how much effort goes into like showing someone how to do something, and like watching them implementing and making sure that they do it correctly. There's so much stuff that goes into it that I just prefer to work with my agency clients that like coaches, consultants that already want results essentially. So that's why I make offers to them. I show them how I do things, all that type of stuff. So the major thing for you guys is if you are trying to scale up your stuff, or be trying to maybe scale up your coaching or agency businesses, get insights from people who are actually doing these things right now. Understand that the reality that you want already exists, and you're pretty much going to be good from there. So that's kind of like the value side of things, guys. And like I said, I drop more insights in my list. Not the point of this video. And for me specifically, I know I kind of titled it this harsh reality of making this amount of money, but it's like for me, it's kind of like a mindset shift because I didn't think I was gonna be working this much because every day is a new problem. It's like this client needs this seller, this DM script needs to be better, this process is broken, we need to fix this. These we're solving good problems, and sometimes they're great problems to have. Like I have problems of clients saying there's too many sales calls, and then I have clients of saying, oh, these sales calls need to be more qualified, and just a bunch of stuff that's coming through. And it's like it's enjoyable to solve these problems because it just puts you into perspective. But I realized that this life isn't really for everyone. Honestly, it looks glamorous. Honestly, it looks like a lot to make all that type of money, to see all those numbers and stripe. But in reality, bro, it's not really all that fun, especially if you don't get to spend it. Honestly, because every day is a problem solve. It's like I have to get people results. I have to get people, what the money's worth is, and you can't come into this with the mindset of let me just make a quick buck because it's gonna be your life, it's gonna consume you. And that's what I realized as I was going through, making all this money and like signing all these clients and getting these guys results, that it's going to be your life eventually, and you have to be okay with it if you really want to scale. And knowing that, I'm happy with the reality of it. So that's kind of like the harsh reality, I would say, because I don't feel like a lot of people talk about it. Like a lot of people kind of like glamorize it and make it seem cool, but it is nice to be able to afford nice things. Like for example, like my mom wanted a nice piece of jewelry. I gave her like the money for it, and just didn't blink when I did. I was like, all right, cool. It's like paying for rent now. It's like cool. Like just doing simple things that you weren't able to do because you have the funds to be able to do it is like the nicest feeling, because nothing beats that, honestly. So that's kind of like the array of hope I'll give to you guys. Like nothing beats having money, nothing beats being able to afford the things that you want to afford, and nothing beats being able to take care of the people that you actually love. So that's pretty much it for me. I wanted to make this pretty short, nothing too crazy. Hope you guys got some value with this. If you want to learn insights, it's links in the description. Not making sure that you guys, if you guys care, stuff down there. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and we'll speak very soon. Peace.